You are listening to the surgical strike across the LoC from the book India's Brave Hearts by Lieutenant General Satish Dua. To get the real essence of the story, do consider reading the book India's Brave Hearts by Lieutenant General Satish Dua. Enjoy the episode. Surgical strike across the LoC. Dawn was yet to break when the string ringing of the phone woke me up. It was the General Officer Commanding of Baramulla Division.
Our base at URI has been attacked by terrorists, and I'm afraid, sir, that the situation is rather precarious.
I was instantly awake. I did not need to be told how serious this was. If terrorists attacked a military base in person, then they were likely on a suicide mission. And when a man comes prepared to die, he will cause great damage and heavy casualties before he does. The next phone call, a few minutes later, confirmed this. 30 minutes later, we had all the information. 4 suicide terrorists had blazed their way through our base at URI, very close to the line of control, and caused heavy casualties. During the firefight, a cookhouse also caught fire, which increased the death toll. In the 4 decades of my career, I had faced lot of tough situations, mostly in counter-terrorism. But the scale of what happened on that Sunday, 18 September 2016, was huge. We lost 18 soldiers, 18 young lives lost, and it happened on my watch. As I got ready to go to the helipad, the cup of tea that I had started sipping suddenly seemed tasteless. I left it and went out to the lawn just to be with myself before the chopper arrived. It was a bright, clear day, but for me, it was a dark Sunday, the darkest ever. The terrorists had chosen their target and timing well. A change of battalion had been in progress. For your information, a battalion can stay in a high altitude area for only 2 winters. Height above 9,000 feet are considered high altitude. And most of our posts on the line of control ranged from 9,000 to 12,000 feet. Soldiers face several medical issues if they stay for a prolonged period at that height, mostly due to lack of oxygen in the air and extreme cold during the snow season. So the battalion was in the process of moving out with another one replacing it. During this period of transfer, soldiers of both the battalions spent a couple of weeks together to familiarize the incoming troops with the terrain and peculiarities of the line of control. They conduct joint patrolling and lay ambushes together. At this time, there are double the usual number of soldiers on all posts at the URI base too. There is a concentration of troops from both battalions, with some of them accommodated in tents. The URI base therefore proved to be a good target for the suicide terrorists. As they cut the perimeter fence and entered the camp, it was still dark. But they were detected soon and fired upon. Even as one terrorist died, the other dispersed and started firing indiscriminately at sleeping soldiers and those staring to wakefulness. It was just before dawn. One of the biggest worries in such situation is coordination. We had soldiers from 2 different battalions who had not known each other for long. It was also unfortunate that an LPG cylinder exploded inside the cookhouse. The cookhouse went off in flames, which also engulfed a couple of tents. The scene at URI was grim. The firing had stopped, but the fire were still raging. The casualty, both dead and wounded, had been moved to the field hospital. Sanitization operation to check for more terrorists in the nearby forest were underway. An occasional bullet or grenade would explode because of the heat from the fire. Meanwhile, news came in that the defense minister, the late Mr. Manohar Parrikar, was arriving in URI that afternoon. Why now? Why today? I asked Mr. G. Mohan Kumar, the defense secretary, when he rang me up to tell me of the minister's visit. So many things were happening that needed my attention. The operation in URI, planning how to fly out the mortal remains of all those who had laid down their lives. The road journey to their hometowns, the homage ceremony in Srinagar before their body were sent back. So many calls had to be attended to from the army headquarters, the police, the civil administration, the chief minister, the governor. The army chief had already arrived. I did not need more VIPs on my hand on a day like this. When the defense minister arrived, I was struck by the simplicity of the man, but I had to say no to his wish to go to URI. The operation was still in progress and it was not safe for the minister to be there. He respected the decision, so from the airport we flew by helicopter to Badami Back Cantonment in Srinagar, where my headquarters was located. It was impossible to talk in the noisy chopper. The short flight of 10 minutes was the only time I had that day to be alone with my thoughts. It was easy to preach phrases like, "Don't despair when there are upsets. Look for opportunities in every failure." But the attack at URI was beyond such sentiments. What could be the hidden opportunity in an operation like this? They always send terrorists across the line of control. and we are always defensive and reactive. Then it struck me that there is an outrage in the nation. The country is incensed at Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. My soldiers want revenge, and there is a bold leadership at the center. So why not plan for a strong riposte, something that had never been done before, something that can cause the other side hurt and pain in equal measure. At my headquarters, I finished briefing the defense minister on a map in my operational room. The Army Chief, General Dalbir Singh Suhag, and the Northern Army Commander, Lieutenant General D.S. Hudda, were also present. Kashmir was my area of responsibility. That is the reason I was doing the talking and briefing. The minister did not interrupt me even once. As I finished giving an account of what had happened so far, he asked, "So what is the plan now?" I said, "Sir, if you're asking me about what we can do, then I would like to brief you alone." Yes, I would like to talk to you in your chamber," he said. The officials accompanying the minister did not join, as the minister, the army chief, and the Northern Army Commander walked to my office. The army chief and the Northern Army Commander spoke first. It was their role to work out the larger plans and possibilities at a national level. They talked about our preparedness to take any action and discussed the possibility of our response spiraling into something bigger that would be beyond my level, as I was in charge of operational domain only in Kashmir. Mr. Parikar then turned towards me. "What do you have to say?" I simply said, "You give me the go ahead and I will do it, sir." I thought I saw a glint in his eyes, and I knew I had his full attention. I told him that the chief would take care of the big picture at the national level. Once he gave the green signal, we would plan and execute a bold response on the ground. For years, we have been taking a hit when they send in terrorists, and we are unable to react in kind. We will do something which will create the hurt for them too. We will go across the line of control and hit the terrorist camps inside their territory. But please leave the choice of targets and timing to us. For reasons of security, I cannot divulge the detail of the operational discussion. What I can reveal is the defense minister then asked me two quick questions. First, there will be no collateral damage, I hope. I assured him that we should be able to manage that by going through uninhabited areas. In any case, to maintain an element of surprise, we would need to keep clear of inhabited areas. The second was more of a wishful comment. There should be no casualties to our own soldiers. I promptly replied, "I agree, sir. We should have no casualties, but I cannot guarantee anything. This is war." He paused for a moment, and my heart sank, thinking how hard a politician would find it to agree to such a thing. He said only one word, "Barobar." This Marathi word has different meaning in different contexts. Here to me, it sounded like great, let's do it. When I heard this for the first time on that dark Sunday, I felt a glimmer of satisfaction and relief. The plan was simple and audacious. We would, in an unprecedented move, raid a few terrorist camps across the line of control, cause heavy casualties, and hopefully return with all our men unharmed. Then we would announce to the world and to Pakistan what we had done and why we had done it. Unlike Pakistan, which always denies that it sends in terrorists. After the minister left, it was agreed that I would discuss the operation and possibilities with the army commander. A couple of days later, I went to the command headquarters to brief the army commander, Lieutenant General D.S. Hudda. It was very nice to meet an old friend, Lieutenant General R.R. Nimborkar, who was commanding 16 Corps to the south. We go back a long way. It requires a great deal of planning and coordination for any operations to be successful, especially on a hush and complex as this. The guidance of Army Commander and his staff, as much as operational coordination with my friend Nimborkar, would be crucial to the success of the operation. I am sure the Army Commander must have kept the Army Chief informed. This is the strength of the Army, our hierarchy and chain of command. The commanding officer of the Special Force Battalion was instructed to pick his best team. That's the way it works in the Army. You delegate, the commanding officer knows his commandos best and would pick the right men for the team. For the next 10 days, we worked like men possessed, planning for various operations, weighing the pros and cons of each move, calculating the chances of success against the casualty likely to be incurred, narrowing it down to the operation finally adopted, sitting down with the leaders of the team who would execute the plan and going through every small details. We also began field training on mock-ups of the target area. We had chosen terrorist camps that did not have any habitation close by. I recall a prolonged discussion regarding the route in one place where two options existed. I was insisted on the slightly longer route because the shorter option took us a little close to a village. The dogs will bark and it can break the surprise, I said. A few others felt that the village was too far from our route and I was being overcautious at the expense of prolonging our time in the enemy area, which would increase our risk. I recounted to them my experience in an operation 2 decades earlier, where the mission was botched because the dogs barking at us from a couple of kilometers distance gave the game away. In a town, the dogs may not bark in the next street, but in the countryside, they will bark from even the next village. As it turned out, the team leader who had to execute this operation agreed with me on this. On 18 September 2016, when our base at URI was attacked, the United Nations General Assembly was in session, and the terrorist attack drew widespread condemnation globally. Pakistan was isolated. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's speech in the General Assembly was scheduled for 21st September. From that point of view, Pakistan's timing of the terrorist attack at URI was flawed. There was international pressure on Pakistan to stop supporting terrorism with an active push from our diplomats. Our foreign minister, the late Sushma Swaraj, was scheduled to speak on 25th September. We decided to let that day pass peacefully. We also ensured that we did not launch any operation on the next 2 days in order to lull the other side into compliancy. Meanwhile, during these 10 days, we continued to show routine movement and operations all along the front. We carried out our reconnaissance in the hours of darkness. Several deception measures were used over the next few days, but it would not be prudent to divulge these, as then we will not be able to use such measures again. Suffice it to say that our efforts paid off, as the enemy did not have the slightest knowledge of our plans, targets or timings, despite being alert about the possible retaliation from us. If they had any suspicions, these were speculative and they could not point a finger to anything specific. Secrecy is the key to any successful operation. If you catch the enemy unaware, more than half your battle has been won. This is especially the case in a surgical strike, where you hit the target, achieve your aim, and then have to get out alive. In fact, this is why surgical strikes are the toughest operation in the world. Terrorists infiltrate border to enter our country. They don't have an exit plan. We have to go in, conduct an operation, and get out, all at lightning speed. We had our job cut out for us. Very few people knew the exact date for the launch of this operation. Everything was strictly on a need-to-know basis. I had expressly forbidden any PowerPoint presentations. If a diagram had to be drawn to explain something, it was to be made in freehand and on the spot and destroyed after use. No paper was to be retained by anyone. We did not even give a name to the operation, because sometimes giving a code name has the opposite effect, as people start using the code name and feel secure in their plans. On the day we launched our operation, a few reconnaissance parties had been sent out in advance. They thought that they were going to return at night, but when the operation were launched, they were merged with the raid party and moved ahead with them. Once the mission began, radio communication was kept to minimum because it is susceptible to interception. I had issued strict instructions that radio sets only be used in an emergency, at least not till the first shot had been fired. Within the teams, however, they could use smaller walkie-talkie sets which had a limited range. In any case, the commandos, who were highly skilled and seasoned, did not need to keep coordinating with each other. They had perfected this over years of training and working together in different operations. However, they did not communicate in code words after crossing pre-decided landmarks known as bounds. When our control room received a code word, it meant that the commandos had crossed that landmark. We did not ask them for any more details. It was purely one-way communication, so that we could follow their real-time progress. Several UAVs were also used to monitor the progress of our troop. We spent an anxious night. I found myself praying more for the safety of our soldiers than for the success of the mission. But somehow, I had a positive feeling throughout about this operation. Over the last few days, whenever any of my subordinate staff had voiced their concern, I had tried to ease their doubts. I told everybody, don't surround yourself with negativity. Harness the power of positivity. The commandos' progress was slow, painfully slow, because this was not an operation in the hinterland of Kashmir. They were walking inside enemy territory and faced a hostile atmosphere all around. In operations in the hinterland, Hostels are limited to just a cluster of houses or their hideouts. That was not the case here. Terrorist launch pads are usually one or more houses in a village, right on the line of control, from where they observe the movements of our patrols for a couple of days, familiarize themselves with the terrain, and then launch an infiltration. However, the actual terrorist camps are a few kilometers inside. Here, the element of surprise was absolutely crucial to the outcome. Since our commandos were working well inside enemy territory, they worked like ghosts, so that paradoxically they could stay alive to fight. The trickiest part was passing through their forward line of defense. Forward defense on both sides are protected by minefields. Landmines are buried in the ground to deter the attacker or infiltrator. They also tend to get dislodged by snowfall and rain. It is these that cause maximum damage because their location is unknown. On possible infiltration route, drift flares are fixed, which light up when touched and illuminate the infiltrator for a few minutes. Night vision enabled equipment was also used at the post to vigil round the clock on likely routes of the infiltration. And to make things worse, the soldiers manning the posts would let off a round of bullets now and then as deterrence. The commandos had to cross all these dangers and hurdles without being detected. What helped us was the fact that the Pakistan army was not prepared for infiltration because they did not expect us to be carrying out any such maneuvers, while the Indian side is trained to deal with infiltrators and thus deploy ambush parties and use other such measures. The Pakistan side is a little more static and focused more on manning the line of control posts. It gives me great satisfaction to observe that from 2016 they have also had to deploy soldiers to guard against a possible repeat of our surgical strike. The uncertainty mode has been switched on. The tension mounted in the early hours of 29 September 2016. We were to start the raid simultaneously after everyone was in position. Suddenly, I was told that the firing had started in one of the locations. I was not sure if our team had been discovered and the enemy had fired first, or one of our team had started the firing for whatever reason. Since the first shot had been fired, we decided to advance the launch by 15-20 minutes. Now that the raid had begun, the anxiety in the operation room ratcheted. Would this turn out to be calculated risk or a reckless gamble? Would we achieve success in the mission? What if there were heavy casualties? There were moments when I found myself extremely confident that all would be well. I had taken a leap of faith, and I believe fortune favors the brave. Then the next moment, I would find myself on pin and needles, thinking of everything that could possibly go wrong. This was the first time I realized how difficult it is for someone who had been in operation to sit outside and control it. First, you miss the action and you want to be there in the middle of it, participating and directing. Second, sitting outside far away in an operation room, yet intimately involved in each and every step of the planning. You feel utterly powerless. Thank heavens, my vacillating mood could not be seen by the brave soldiers conducting the operation. At one of the terrorist camps, we got lucky. A huge petrol and diesel dump was hit by a handheld rocket launcher and caused heavy casualties. The explosion created a huge blast which could even be seen in the UAV footage. Although the blast could not be heard, the black cloud of smoke that rose in the air obliterated our view of the drone footage. It seemed a fitting response that had engulfed the cookhouse and tents at URI. The strikes on terrorist camp across the line of control did not last very long. Ours was a swift operation conducted with precision, and while there was a temptation to stay on and cause more damage, the team leaders, as they had rehearsed, broke contact and withdrew rapidly so that they could easily escape back to our side of the line of control. Dawn was breaking. Now was the crucial period of the whole operation. From the moment the soldiers began to exfiltrate to our side till the point the last man come back in. This is the period when the soldiers has neither the element of surprise nor darkness to defend them. Our anxiety in the control room reached a fever pitch at this point. Every time the phone rang, I would flinch, half expecting news of some casualty. At least to me, my sigh of relief was very audible every time it turned out to be some other news. And thankfully, it always was. Within 30 minutes, our men were all back on the Indian side of the line of control. Not a single soldier had been injured during the raid. When I reported to the army commander that the operation had been successful and that all our soldiers were back safely, I could sense his relief across the line. We could feel this with whoever we speak to on the phone after the mission. Up and down the chain, army headquarters had been informed. The leadership had been apprised by the army chief. Lieutenant General Ranbir Singh, Director General Military Operation, told his counterpart in Pakistan over the telephone that the Indian army had hit terrorist camp across the line of control because of the terror attack at URI, where we had lost 18 soldiers. He also told him that we had no desire to escalate this any further. He was essentially saying that the ball was in Pakistan's court. If they wished to expand the conflict, the onus would be on them. By mid-morning, the DGMO was ready to make a press statement and answer questions. The national media had been assembled. News had started trickling out and there was excitement in the whole country at the stupendous success of what came to be known as the surgical strike. I spoke with the DGMO and told him to hold off the announcement till we took a full head count of all soldiers returning after the ops. Everyone in Delhi wanted to start the press conference, but I insisted that we wait till we could confirm that every single one of our soldiers was back safely. This would have delayed them by about an hour, but it meant that we could announce that we had inflicted heavy casualties on the terrorists in their camps across the LoC for the first time and not incurred a single casualty of our own. As I said, fortune favors the brave. It was around noon, if my memory serves me right, when the DGM announced to the world that we had hit terrorist camps across the LoC. We also announced that we had no desire to escalate the situation and that the Pakistan DGMO had also been told this over the phone. The media used the term surgical strike and the name stuck. It merits mention here that while there have been shallow operations across the LoC in the past from both sides, what was different this time was the scale and the depth of the targets and the fact that we owned up to it proactively. It was also for the first time that we used diplomacy at leverage for an operation. We had, for example, built public opinion against the terrorist strikes at URI by using the UN General Assembly as a forum. Soon after the press conference, the team leaders were flown in by helicopters to the headquarters for a quick debrief. I could see that they were exhausted, but their faces were glowing. Their body language was jubilant. When they saluted me and said, "Jai Hind sir," I was filled with emotion. I returned their salute crisply and said, "Thank you boys. Thank God you have all come back safe and sound. History will remember you for what you have achieved today." And then before they could start discussing the operation, the boy who used to bring us tea entered with a tray. As instructed by me, instead of tea, the tray held a few bottles of Johnny Walker Black Label. Normally this would be the time for beer, but today is not a normal day. It's not a day for beer. These tigers need something stronger. That drew a lot of laughter. Everyone was in high spirits. I then turned towards Brigadier Rana Kalita, Brigadier General Staff, and said, "These SF guys are the habit of eating whiskey glasses, so I'm not going to risk it." With that, I opened a bottle of Black Label myself and poured a decent slug into their mouths one by one. You know all about having a sort of whiskey. Well, these guys were getting sort by whiskey. Then one of them took the bottle and said, "Permission to give a sort to the Corps Commander, sir." I opened my mouth and he poured in a generous measure. I thought I would get a kick and feel high after drinking straight from the bottle. But I was already on a high, and so I suspect were all of them. I also realized that they must be really tired and the adrenaline rush could not carry them forever. So we rushed through a quick debrief and did a more detailed on the next day. I received a phone call at around 3:30 in the afternoon. "Sir, the defense minister wants to talk to you." His private secretary came on the line first and congratulated me. When the defense minister came on the line, he said only one word: "Congratulations." It was a little disconcerting as he did not say anything more. I replied, "Jai Hind sir, congratulations to you sir. This is your victory as much as of the soldiers who went across. Thank you for giving us the go-ahead to conduct the operation." He replied, "Yes, I'm glad that all our soldiers are safe. Thank you again. It was a stupendous operation, something that had never been done before. We had struck a terrorist camp across the LoC and eliminated a large number of terrorists. This surgical strike, in effect, set the stage for the Balakot airstrike. When the terrorist attack happened at Pulwama a year and a half later, we had drawn new red lines, and India had said the soft state tag. I had never imagined that I would get an opportunity to be capping nearly 4 decades of my service with a glorious operation like this. One cannot overcome the grief of the loss of the 18 soldiers in Uri, but the surgical strike gave us a sense of closure. I salute the memory of the departed, and I salute the bravery of the brave hearts who executed the surgical strike.